commit the property crimes they're released almost immediately if they're even booked. The Salt Lake County Jail will not really, they don't want anybody with less than misdemeanor, or excuse me, less than a felony. And we've complained about it for years that the county jail will not take people that and keep them for more than an hour. People who just take a bike or even a car. If you steal a car and you're put in jail, you get out with $100 bail. It's almost that simple. So I don't think Salt Lake City Council and Mayor are responsible for the biggest issue. The biggest issue really is with the county council, the mayor, the county mayor, and the council don't fund the DA enough to keep misdemeanors booked into jail and off the street. I know anybody that does commit these crimes normally will commit the crimes as long as they're on the street. So that's one of the reasons why the mayor and the chief and other law enforcement yesterday decided to focus on the apex criminals, the ones who are committing most of the crimes. And the same thing is happening with the misdemeanors. Maybe 10% of the criminals are committing 90% of the crime every day that they're on the street. So that's my comment.
Hey, Detective, do you mind answering a couple more questions?
I have all night for us to.
Well, we don't, so don't say that. Lexi, do you have a question?
Sorry, I couldn't find where to unmute.
I don't even know how to raise a hand, so go ahead.
Yeah, I thought I'd be polite. Sorry, I teach junior high, so raising hands is funny to me. But so I just have a question. The main reason I'm on this meeting right now is because my house is directly behind the Dryers factory where this new apartment complex is set to go up. And that alley right there on Commonwealth, right behind that factory, is just, I mean, my boyfriend literally saw someone doing crack on the alley today. So my question is, and I mean no disrespect, officer, from what I'm hearing, from what you're saying, is that there's just not enough police to be stopping things like this. And with bringing so many more community members into the situation, I just am curious of how that policing situation might work. I would say it's a majority between being the DI right there and then a big blank alley. It attracts a lot of crime. I mean, even
there are a lot of people
yes,
who believe with what those people were thinking and doing today at the Capitol. The question is, does this mark a beginning or an end for this country?
Do you have any answers for that?
Look, I think there is some positive to take out of tonight.
I think that's the TV.
Okay. So I'm not really sure how to answer that question. We have some bike units that could probably do proactive patrol in that area. I could probably patrol that area starting next week. I can ask other officers. We have this kind of like an intraweb type page where we can ask specific officers to, like all the Sugar House officers to, to kind of hang out in that area and drive down the area and make stops and stuff like that. And so there's ways, if we know about it, for you guys to contact us, let us know, like, hey, this is a specific area here that needs work on. Then we can take that targeted approach and kind of work on those areas. Does that help answer?
Detective, do we reach out to you or to Nathan Miser?
You can reach out to me until tomorrow at 4:00.
Okay.
So
I just want to comment. I just in response to that,
Sure.
I mean, I would be happy with more patrol over there, but I guess my bigger concern, and I know we're going to talk about it later, but is that new apartment complex going up, and if we're already so short on police, why? I just a thought to put out there, because I'm guessing a lot of other people who are more directly affected by this new apartment complex are on this chat, and I think that that's worthy of being brought up.
Can I say something, Lyman?
Yeah, please.
It's been my experience, especially with a little park across the street from my home, that the busier the area is, the less problem you'll have. So it's possible that once the apartments are built and there's a lot of professionals and people coming and going and lots going on, that issue will move on. Unfortunately, it probably won't go away, but it might move to another area. The apartment complex might actually help.
So actually, to kind of speak to that, I've in my time in working in the Sugargrass area as CIU, I get contacted a lot by people that are building the apartments, saying that they're having issues. And so, to Sally's comment, I would kind of agree with that. That the construction thing, it kind of brings in the transients a little bit. I don't know if it's a
Sorry, I'm gonna butt in. Did I mention the bottom floor is gonna be a liquor store?
Well, that I think is going to replace the old liquor store.
Yes, thus bringing the homeless that hang out outside of the liquor store to my
All the
backyard.
beggars will be there.
Yeah,
And I'm not trying to be callous. I saw in the comments, I fully agree. There's a root to this problem that we're not really looking at, but then there's also the harsh reality of what's actually around us.
All right, we got to move on. Detective, do you mind answering questions in the chat from Bob and Chuck? If you guys want to put your questions in the chat to Detective Bishop.
Yep, I'll hang out here for a
okay.
while.
Thank you.
Detective Bishop, this is Bob Farrell. We've chatted quite a bit, and I wanted to say thanks again. Appreciate the great service here. Earlier this year, we heard from many patrol officers dealing with all the crime in our neighborhood that the city had moved towards less law enforcement due to fear of protests, COVID, etc. I think we have seen kind of the results of that. And last night on the local news, we saw the mayor and the police chief talking about more of a turn towards a tough on crime type strategy for this area. Do you have a time frame when we might see that?
So I wasn't privy to any of the information that they talked about. I know they're working on putting together a task force, and I've heard of people being already assigned to that task force. And I think they're just planning on, arranging that and then working together with the different state. That was honestly the best thing that's ever happened since I've been in the Sugargrass area.
That was awesome.
Yeah. So
Wow.
anyway,
Oh, thanks. That was very interesting. They had a news story on what's going on with kind of the 9th West area as well as the ballpark, and I think real similar to the Sugar House here. So thanks again for that information, and good luck in the new role.
thank you, appreciate it.
Hey, Landon, this is Will. Can I make a
Yeah,
comment real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Will.
So I wanted to kind of respond to George's comments about the county jail. A couple of years ago, pre-COVID, the county funded the opening of additional pods in the jail to alleviate the concerns that George was talking about. Due to COVID, we've had to limit some of the operations. So yes, there's less capacity in the jail, but it's unfair to say that the mayor has not funded that or that the council in its entirety has not funded that. As you know, the council holds the purse strings for the county budget. It is a partisan council, and the majority on that council has not wanted to fund additional resources for the DA or the jail. But when COVID wanes, we will be opening those additional pods at the jail back up. I think Sheriff Rivera has done a great job, and District.
If that's what you do, I got a use for you.
Man, I don't even know what that is.
I think actually we're getting hacked into if you look at the chat on the right-hand side. I don't know how to stop it, but whoever Jennifer's screen is, someone keeps hacking into it.
That's a first.
Yes, it is a first. If you look over there in the chat where it says Samantha Miller,
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
Go ahead, Will. Do you have anything to add?
No, that was it, Landon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on. So if anybody wants to ask any questions for Detective Bishop in the chat, please feel free. Adon.
Hello everyone. Happy New Year.
Will you introduce your team for us?
Yes, I believe I have Ramin and Diane Olson, who's also helping us do outreach for so we're here to talk about a couple of projects happening in the Sugar House area. One of them is a water line that's coming through town, through the heart of Sugar House, and Diane will be talking about that. And then after she's done, we'll talk about the reconstruction of 900 East, and also a little bit about the curb and gutter project on 1100 East that's also set to start this spring. So Diane, take it away.
Yeah, and actually, hi everyone. I'm going to defer to our project manager, Courtney Hamer, from Salt Lake City Department of Public Utilities, to just give you a little update on this upcoming project. And whoever the powers be, you'll just need to allow her to share her screen.
Thank you. Thanks, Adon and Diane. Let's see. So if I think I need to be screen shared enabled.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm trying to deal with the potential people getting in while I let you. Do me a favor, if people request to get in while you're presenting, will you hold off?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, looks good. Okay, hopefully that's sharing. Hi, I'm Courtney Hamer, and thanks all of you for some of your time tonight. I work for Salt Lake City Public Utilities.
Top right here.
And I'm the project manager for the East-West Water Line. With me tonight is Diane Olson, who is a member of our public involvement team. And I think I saw Holly Mullen, our DPU communication and engagement manager, on here as well. And as you guys heard, also joining us are Ramin and Adon from Salt Lake City Engineering. And they'll be providing some updates on the 900 East roadway reconstruction project. So once I'm done with my few slides, I'll send it over to Ramin and Adon. So Diane and I are here to provide information on the upcoming construction of the East-West Water Line. We know we've been here before, and some of this may look familiar to some of you guys. Public Utilities is designing and constructing a new water line. And this is an overall map of the project. It's a 6-mile water line project. It starts over at our terminal reservoir or storage reservoir at 3300 East and 3500 South. It runs through Mill Creek, through Salt Lake City, and ends at approximately 1700 South and 300 East. So the purpose of the water line is to supplement the existing water supply, maintain reliable service, and meet the growing population needs for the Salt Lake Valley. We've also got our kind of overall schedule for the project down below here. We just finished phase 1 in orange on 500 East. Phase 2 is shown in blue on the map, and that's why we're here tonight. And phase 3 is in purple the rest of the way. And it's currently under design for future construction. So again, we're here just to talk about phase 2 construction, which you can see in blue. It starts just west of Highland Drive, runs along Warnock Ave, crosses Elizabeth Street, runs through the Wood Hollow condominiums, along the edge of the Forestdale Golf Course, along 900 East, and ends on Ashton Ave just off of 900 East. So Public Utilities has put the project out to bid, and we've chosen VanCon as our contractor. And we're currently working with them to figure out our construction schedule. We do have a proposed anticipated construction schedule to share with you tonight. You can see we've broken the project into multiple segments. And the sequencing and schedule of those segments is, of course, subject to change. So the first segment that we've got here is the canal crossing at Warnock Ave and Elizabeth Street. So we expect that to happen in February of 2021 to March of 2021. You'll also see construction on 900 East. That's going to be completed. That'll start in spring of 2021 with completion by July of 2021. And that water line will be going in ahead of the 900 East roadway reconstruction project, excuse me. And the city will be coordinating with businesses and residents on both this east-west water line project and the 900 East project. So the next segment is the Wood Hollow condominiums. That's in this area right here. That's going to be completed by August of 2021. And the final segment of phase 2 is the one that runs along the edge of the Forestdale Golf Course. That's scheduled to happen November 2021 to May of 2022. And the construction is going to happen during the winter to minimize impact to play at the golf course. So as with all construction, we thank everybody in advance for your understanding and patience during construction. The work hours for the east-west water line project are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The potential impacts include temporary traffic impacts, including Elizabeth Street and on 900 East. Impacts may also include increased noise, may include vibrations and dust, and we'll be working to notify residents ahead of time for any traffic detours with the appropriate signage and notices. We'll also be doing outreach and sending out notices to residents ahead of the different work segments that I just took you guys through. And we're also planning to have a tentative virtual Meet the Contractor event sometime in February or March. So if you do want to stay informed on the East-West Waterline project, we've got our project hotline shown here, our project email here, and then our Public Utilities project website here. So thanks again for your time, and I'm going to turn it over.
Diane, one quick second. Sorry, it's Holly. There are a couple of questions in the chat room. I think Diane answered one, but Chair Landon has asked us to direct it to the group regarding the 9th East construction at the same time. Diane or Courtney, could you talk a little bit, or Adon even, a little bit about how we're coordinating those projects and how that will affect people?
Yeah, well, and thank you, Holly. And maybe as Adon brings up their schedule, you'll see that essentially the disturbance to the public will be during this one construction season. The two projects will essentially overlap, but from what the public is seeing in the disruption in the roadway, they'll be overlapping, and there will likely be two contractors working on 9th East, overlapping at a time. Before I get too far into it, because Salt Lake City has a little bit of a different timeline. We expect our contractor to be on 9th East as early as, I think, March, with them needing to be complete no later than July 2021, so that it can allow for the roadway reconstruction to proceed. And they anticipate roadway reconstruction. I don't want to speak for them. We can defer to Adon, but as early as April. So maybe with that, we can have the engineering team give their overview, and you'll see we are working on coordinating so that the public gets that consistent message on what to expect. And just, I guess, really quick to Councilwoman Fowler's question, as far as notice, we will send out a postcard as soon as the contractor receives notice to proceed from Salt Lake City Department of Public Utilities. So that's about a month ahead of construction. And then ahead of each segment and any disruption to like neighborhoods or other areas, it's typically at least 2 weeks ahead of any construction disruption on any one street is what timeline we're working on. Okay, we can answer more questions as they come up, but I'll defer now to Courtney and Adon and Ramin.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yes.
good. Yeah. Hey, Don, all you.
Thanks. So yes, so this is an unprecedented time for the Sugar House community and our city as a whole. They're not here today, but we're also coordinating with our partners at UDOT, who are also getting ready to reconstruct that last section of I-80 from 1300 East to the mouth of the canyon. And then they'll continue on to reconstruct that other section of I-215 from the mouth of the canyon to about, I want to say 3300 South or something like that. And so their project is going to start pretty soon as well. And as part of that, they're going to be shutting down that 1300 East Bridge. And we're coordinating all of those activities with public utilities and with our projects, including the curb and gutter project on 1100 East. And so there's going to be lots of work happening in the area. It's one of the more popular neighborhoods in our city, and it shows. And this is why we're now getting our infrastructure, getting it ready, renewing water lines, sewer lines. And so yes, our project will pick up as soon as public utilities is done in July, and we'll continue on. The reconstruction of 900 East, as you guys may know, goes from 2700 South up to Hollywood Avenue, which is just a block to the north of 2100 South. So it's approximately 6 to 7 blocks. We're reconstructing the road. We're adding bike lanes. We're adding park strips, just making it more comfortable for everyone to travel through this area, to visit those businesses. And we'll be coordinating those impacts with everyone else so that everyone knows what's happening when it's happening. So.
Mr. Chair, sorry, can I ask you a quick question? Adon, how long do we expect 900 East to be in construction during that?
So
I'm just wondering how often I can get in and out of my house, although I've been working from my house for the last year in this onesie, but.
So we'll be coordinating those impacts with businesses, with residents, with all the apartments that happen to live, that are situated in that area, as to minimize those impacts and ensure that people are still able to travel through, again, with all the work happening in the area, not just from road construction, but apartments and everything else, and UDOT coming in as well. It is crucial for us to coordinate these impacts to minimize those travel delays and interruptions. We'll know more as far as the phasing of our section of the project once we hire a contractor. A lot of times they get very creative in terms of their phasing, in terms of their approach. And that'll be a huge aspect of how we select these teams that come in with innovative design and construction techniques that can help us mitigate some of these impacts as much as possible. So,
Don,
yes.
oh, there's just questions about, getting people in and out of the area, kind of similar to Councilman Fowler's question.
Right.
It might be helpful
if you guys may remember, when we had the reconstruction of 1300 East a couple of years ago, when we started from 2100 South up to 1700 South, we had business access signs that sort of told you which businesses were open and which routes to take for you to continue to access all of these businesses. We'll have a similar setup in this area. It'll be a construction zone, but we'll make every effort to allow for everyone to find their way around these areas, these businesses, because we know that people still need to travel and go to where they're going. And so we really want to make sure that we do everything we can to minimize those impacts and to get out and stay out for a long time after this. So.
Okay, thank you, Adon. I mean, it was nice enough of them to come and join us early on before the project gets started. They do an amazing job of keeping us in the loop of what is going on. So it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, team. So we're gonna get a canal. We're gonna have a little change to the agenda. So Chief Brown just joined us. We're gonna get a canal project update from Natalie Moore. And then we will go to Chief Brown for, sorry, Mark, we're gonna push you back just a little while. Chief Brown, I'm hoping we'll just do all questions in the chat. So go ahead, Natalie.
Okay, thanks. We'll just take a couple minutes to just to update you on the canal project. This is the Jordan and Salt Lake Canal project on Highland Drive between Wilmington Avenue and just past Ashton Avenue on the south side. We've been here a few times, so you probably know what's going on, but we're happy to finally announce that we're finally going to construction. We had originally planned December. Holidays kind of got in the way, so we're finally starting. The contractor is Lyndon Jones, and they'll be starting probably next week, next couple of weeks. They'll be starting to bringing their equipment in and preparing the site for excavation. So we're finally getting there. But I wanted to come here today to introduce our public engagement team. You obviously know Holly Mullen and Sharon Turner. And I also wanted to introduce Tiffany Carlson, who will be kind of leading the charge on public engagement. We have some information that we'd like to share with you in case anything comes up during construction that you'd like to, if you have any concerns or anything. So Tiffany, are you
Yep.
here?
I'm here, and we have, I just put in the chat, one of my coworkers is Laura Ingersoll. She got kicked out with the hacker and she's trying to get back in, and she's trying to provide an email, but I guess the chat is disabled, so she can't actually enter her email.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure we don't get any more hackers in. That helps.
She's texting me like, let me back in.
She's admitted now. Sorry about that.
Okay, perfect. No problem. No problem. I just wanted to introduce her. She's actually a resident of, so she's here as a resident and not as my coworker, but she's here. So hi, Laura. Can I share my screen with you?
Yes, 1 second.
Send it to Shannon.
Just don't let anyone in, if you don't mind.
I won't let anyone in, I promise.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Hi, Laura. Okay, let me just pull this up. Let me see if you can see this. I'm not gonna let,
Rosendale.
should I? Okay, so as Natalie said, this is the Jordan and Salt Lake Canal Replacement Project in Sugar House. You probably know a little bit about it, but I haven't been here before, but you guys have been informed a little bit about it. So we just wanted to give you a heads up for what's coming. This is project overview. So our project will be here on Highland Drive, and it's not a very long stretch. We've got all this existing canal right now, and we just need to connect this from about 20 to 35 south to about 2300 south. So that's a pretty short segment there, but it'll stop here at I-80. And we do have to do some work here at the Wilmington intersection. And so our plan is this Friday, we will be out delivering flyers, hand delivering flyers, talking to business owners, letting people know this is coming and collecting information for our email updates. So we do have a project email. If you want to get updates on the project as it goes through, we'll be sending those on a weekly basis as we talk to the contractor about what's coming up for impacts. We don't have a lot of information on how that's going to play out at this point, but we can be providing that on a weekly basis. So it's not a very long project in duration. So we're going to start here in January, as Natalie said, maybe next week. And then the canal portion will be done in sometime in March, with a few other items still outstanding that may last through June. So not a ton of impact there after March, but we will still be out working. Our project hotline phone number is here. It's 385-318-3636. And that rings to several of us here at our PI department. So you should get a live person. And if you don't, leave a message and we'll get back to you quickly. We also have an email address, just saltlakeCityComms@gmail.com. And then we will be linking to the Salt Lake City website with our updates. So we can be providing those on a weekly basis as well. This is the flyer that we will be delivering on Friday. And some of this probably isn't new information for you again, but wanted you to kind of see what we are going to share. So a little bit of the project overview. Access will be maintained for businesses and residences. There will be some interruptions, but they should be minimal. And traffic will be 2-directional on Highland Drive. The traffic impacts are expected to be minimal there as well. So construction again will start in January, canal construction completed in March, paving and landscaping in June. And then we did want to talk a little bit about the trees. I know we've talked about this before, but there are existing trees that will be removed as part of this project. They will be replaced. However, we know that there is another project that will be coming up. And so we don't want to put the trees in now, knowing that this will take place in a couple of years. So the trees will be replaced as part of the next project that comes through. And that could be 2023. So just want everybody to be aware they are coming out, they are coming back. It's just going to take a couple, maybe take a couple years to get those in place, but want to be prepared for the next project that comes through to keep the trees alive. So again, here's our project contact information. And that's really all we have tonight. Are there any questions that we can answer? Natalie, did I miss anything you want to add?
No, that's great. I saw that Lynn asked in the comments, Highland and 9th will be impacted at the same time. And yes, it appears to be so. There's a lot of construction going on. Highland will maintain the traffic and access to businesses, like we said. But yeah, we'll have construction impacts there as well. So we apologize in advance for all the, all the equipment and mess and everything. It's a lot going on. So.
Natalie, if you need us to pass any information, we'd be happy to put it in our newsletter.
Okay, definitely. Yeah. And like Tiffany said, we'll pass out flyers and communicate one-on-one with businesses. And also I'll put the email and hotline number in the chat as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Chief Brown. So we're going to take 10 or 15 minutes to talk to Chief Brown. He's going to talk about what the city announced yesterday. Well, he'll take all questions in the chat so we can move on to the snow groves before our time is allotted. So go ahead, Chief Brown.
Thanks, Landon. Did we, was something happened yesterday and wasn't? No. Anyway, it's good to see you again. Talked with you last month, but yeah, yesterday we stood together with some of our federal partners U.S. Attorney John Huber, Commissioner Jess Anderson from the Department of Public Safety, and from the U.S. Marshal's Office, Matthew Harris. And we talked about ways that we plan to impact violent crime within our community. When you look at violent crime, there's kind of an apex criminal, the top tier criminal who is habitually causing a lot of crime in our communities. I think the number that was thrown out yesterday was about 7% of criminals meet that definition. But sadly, they probably account for, it's that old 80-20 rule. 80% of the crime is committed by 20% of the individuals. So they're committing a lot of crime. And the concerning part is it's violent crime. I mean, we've looked over, we 5 years ago when I took over as chief, we started into a CompStat model, but really CompStat is just following the numbers. It's intelligence-led policing. It's looking at the numbers. It's looking at the crimes, the hot spots, the trends, and deploying your resources appropriately. And that's what we've done. And over the last year, for whatever reason, and it's not just locally, it's across the country, crime has spiked. In some cities, it's astronomical. In Salt Lake City, it's 21%. We've seen an increase in violent crime. And that's a number, but let me put that into perspective. That's 287 more victims than we had last year. Those are people, those are mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. Those are people that were victimized. That's unacceptable. With COVID and different things that are occurring, we have a very difficult time putting people into jail. There's been some bail reform with COVID impact. Our officers describe jail kind of as a revolving door, and Detective Bishop can attest to that, is that many times we'll book people, and we're booking people for felonies, serious crimes, and they're out within hours, sometimes before we actually complete our reports or end our shifts. These people are back on the streets. I showed an example yesterday of an individual that was arrested from April of last year to November 9 times. And these are for felonies, serious felonies. I think one of the arrests was for a restricted person with a handgun, and they were released 5 of those times the same day. The most they ever spent for one of those bookings was 5 days in jail. And so what we're finding out is there's no accountability. Criminals are learning that it's kind of a book and release to jail. And I'm not pointing fingers at Sheriff Rivera. I'm just saying that's the system we're trying to operate in. But if we raise the stakes a little bit, and U.S. Attorney John Huber has talked about in the federal system, it's a little different game. If you charge somebody federally and they indict, well, guess what? They go to jail. They're not released. And if they're convicted, they go to a federal correction facility, of which we have none in Salt Lake City or in Utah. And you typically do every day of your sentence. And so when you start talking and you start setting that example, criminals learn quickly that wherever that is happening, you don't want to be. Now, that Salt Lake City we don't want that to occur here in Salt Lake City. And so that's why we're looking at partnering with our federal U.S. Attorney's Office and the U.S. Marshals. There are quite a few individuals that are out on different warrants that we've arrested, we've screened, and we have warrants. So we're going to work with the U.S. Marshals with their intel, with some of their technologies, and with our staff to go round these individuals up. And so the whole thing was to try to leverage our federal partnerships and the different processes they have to make an impact on violent crime in our communities. I mean, we've been faced with, last year was tough. We've had a lot of people resign or retire. And so our numbers are down. As we try to build those numbers up over the next year, this will give us more resources and assets that we can lean on. So that was typically what we're trying to do. So I'll take any questions or any concerns that you may have or thoughts.
Should we take we have a few minutes to take a few questions.
While you're thinking about that, I want to give a shout out to the new Madam Chair, Amy Fowler. Congratulations.
I'm trying to respect Mr. Chair Landon's request about questions in the chat. So thank you, Chief Brown, and I'll be typing my questions.
I'm really bad at chat. I'll do my best, okay?
Well, thank you for coming tonight, Chief Brown. I know that you're busy. This is 2 months in a row, so thank you. I know you're at Ballpark tomorrow, so
Yeah.
good luck.
Thank you, Len. I appreciate it. It's good to see you all again, though. Thank you. And I'll be back.
For everything. I mean, you do a great job for us, so thank you. Mark, you ready to talk about Snellgroves?
Yes, I am. All right. In the interest of time, everybody on the community council and residents in the area that are participating tonight, thank you again for your volunteering and the amount of time you spend. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of you on a number of different projects in our community over the past number of years, and I am keenly aware of how much time you give up from your own families. So thank you. I know we're running a little bit late. This is the third time I've presented to the community council between the land use committee that you run, Judy, and then the council at large regarding the Snellgroves Dryers project. It's 3 acres. It's kind of in the heart of our community, as you're all aware, 2100 South frontage on the north side of the parcel, and then it goes from 8th East to 9th East, east to west. It encompasses just a little bit over 3 acres. And what it's currently zoned community commercial. I think it's been a long time holding pattern zone. It was a manufacturing facility for such a long time that I just don't think it ever warranted the visit with regards to our master plan or our zoning in the area. And so our request of you all tonight is we're looking for a positive recommendation for a rezone. Our ask is that we continue the Sugar House Central Business District 2 zone that's on our east flank. And for those of you that aren't that familiar with it off the top of your head, the Smiths and that hard corner that goes from 9th East, 2100 South, and then eastward is the most western edge of the Sugar House Central Business District 2. So what we would be looking to do is extend the existing zone further west to 800 East. Why it matters to us, the zone has a lot more performance criteria with architectural and design standards. So it's actually a more involved design process for us. And more expensive design process, quite frankly. But we also want what we're trying to accomplish here to be in keeping with the tone and tenure that's been established over the last 15 years or so with our current zoning and design guidelines that's really allowed for a sense of a community. A number of years ago, Soren Simonson suggested that he thought Sugar House would grow to be a little bit like Portland's Pearl District, where it would densify in a pretty intense little area that's a few blocks long, east, west, and north, south. And I think it was pretty astute observation. The idea is simply this: if we get one more floor of height with the criteria that the Sugar House Central Business District Zone 2 allows, we can build another floor on the project. And our take on that is, if I can add one more floor of height to get just over 50 feet of height for the building, it matches the height of the existing buildings that are in the Central Business District. It's not higher than any of them, but it allows for us to garner enough density and depth to provide affordable housing units inside the market rate apartment project. And for those of you that aren't that familiar with it, we're trying to build the first mixed income building in Sugar House where we can have affordable units, market rate, higher end units, and micro units all associated in the confines of one facility. The significance of that is we don't have affordable units in Sugar House. The second thing is affordable units are for, single parents, young professionals, people starting out. Young government employees don't make a large income to pay for some of these higher and higher rents that are occurring in Sugar House. The appeal to live in Sugar House is everybody can walk to a multitude of grocery stores, services, restaurants, nightlife, and so on and so forth. And then we have mass transit adjacent to us on 9th East. So from a land use planning perspective, it makes an awful lot of sense to densify nodes of our community that the services exist to accommodate and that warrants that densification. So the thought process is if I can build another floor of height, I can build 53 units on that top floor. And in return, we would earmark or dedicate or deed restrict 80% affordable AMI units to the total of 53 units interspersed throughout the project. And what it allows for us to do with that for all of you is these individuals that can only afford a micro unit or an affordable unit are afforded the opportunity to have a pool, rooftop decks, bike lockers, ski and bike maintenance facility, fitness center, and all the accoutrements that are going into these more expensive projects that the rent rates normally will warrant or bolster or pay for these amenities. And I think so often the people that are the fabric of our community that can't afford these rising rents should be afforded the opportunity to have a nice gym to work out in, or the opportunity to swim in a pool or sit in a nice lobby, or enjoy the accoutrements that the rest of the community benefits from in these elevated projects. So the ask is if we can go CC current zone allows 45 feet of height. If we go to Sugar House Central Business District 2, we can build one more floor. If I'm allowed to build one more floor, I'll put that many units into the affordable pool for our community. And so what it is it's a public-private partnership. It's if the neighborhood supports it and the community supports it, then we can do something that our community and our neighborhood desperately needs. That's the ask. The idea is we need a master plan change and a rezone request. I think you've all seen the design of the building. It's the preference of some of the procedural due process on the government side that we stick to strictly zoning and the master plan discussion tonight, rather than demonstrate the design. I think, Judy, you've got the design up on the website and people can refer to it. I've been very, very open and forthcoming in everything we're trying to accomplish because we want the community's feedback. We're really proud of the design. We've worked really, really hard to make it fit into our community. And so with that, we will be looking for design approval, providing we get positive recommendations from you tonight. And that will be the next step or the next phase in the entitlement process. Because of time, I think that's all I'll really spend on it, and we'll spend a little bit more time dialogue with you.
Okay, I have the first question. You said you want to change the zone to 8th East, but we have not talked with the property owners on either end. So Lex is here, he can clarify. I think this is to only rezone your parcel at this time.
Correct, but our parcel does extend literally to boundary of 8th East and 9th East. I just wasn't clear in the descriptor. It's not the entirety of the block,
Good.
but we actually front both sides, Judy.
Got it.
So Ava, if I could
Yeah,
ask-
my daughter, I broke my iPad. I knew someone was going to catch me on that.
Of course.
Thanks a lot.
So I have a question to ask. If you don't get this rezone that you're requesting and you don't do the additional extra floor, will there be any units in the building that are considered affordable housing?
Well, we still have an arm or a wing of the facility. We would like to build a little element of micro units and some art space that's donated space for, you know, community art. And we've lost so many of those community little gallery spaces and stuff that we're trying to put some of that fabric back. We'll incorporate a little bit of the ice cream cone homage to the history in that area. So that part will occur. But we wouldn't be, you don't get the density and the intensity of use to provide the baseline budget. We can afford to build the pools and the rooftop decks and stuff with the units that we are afforded to build in the 4 stories that 45 feet will allow. If we get one more floor, we can do a give back for the community. And what I'm trying to do is influence more affordable incorporated in all our projects. And this was a litmus test for us, to be very frank. We're hoping that the community would support the idea. And subsequently, that's the ask.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? We're here just to talk about the rezone. I see there's a lot of questions about parking in the chat. Mark, you can address them if you'd like to.
Yeah, you know what?
We're just gonna talk about rezone.
You know, many of you know that I did the University of Utah Med Center and built a lot of that parking structure that's up on the flank up on I-80 on the old Shopco site. We're really sensitive to the parking and the parking requirements in our projects, and especially in the Sugar House community. We actually have done really well with the parking ratios. We're going to exceed most of the parking ratios of every other project in the Sugar House trade radius. We're parking in the neighborhood of 1.3 stalls per residential unit, which is a really nice high ratio. We have 80 stalls earmarked for daytime retail that will be associated with the liquor store component, because we're going to incorporate a new liquor store in the corner. And then at night, all that parking will be visitor parking, weekends, Sundays. And generally, that's where we find we watch projects that creep into adjacent neighborhoods if they're underparked on their ratios or their percentages. Overnight parking, visitors and weekends and stuff, and parties and gatherings and the like, which theoretically we're not supposed to be having right now, but that stuff trickles into the adjacent communities. I've been involved in some multifamily projects around town that I think were underparked, and it's impactful to the adjacent neighbors. I can assure you that we've got really good ratios, very secure parking. It's all under the building and underground. The nice thing about it is we're accessing it in 3 or 4 different directions, off 2100 South, off 8th East, and 2 back off Commonwealth. And why that matters is we're dispersing traffic into 3 or 4 different directions. We won't adversely impact any one particular street with the you know, narrowed burden of all traffic going in one direction.
Hey, Mark, do you mind answering a couple of the questions in the chat?
Yeah, let me just put it up here.
Would do to the block.
Okay, I've been trying to see where they start.
Yeah, good luck.
Holy mackerel.
And then we're gonna move on. You can answer which ones you feel appropriate, and then we'll move to Judy Short. Judy, you want to do a land use report? I know there's a lot going on.
Let me just talk about the affordable real quick.
Sure.
I saw a couple questions rolling into the affordable.
Sure.
What we'll do is we'll follow the Salt Lake County, Salt Lake City standards for affordable units, which we will restrict the units based on what they deem affordable at 80% of the average median income. And the nice thing about that is, for user parlance or simple parlance, if a multifamily unit is $2,000 in our market now, which is usually about the case if they're $225 or $2 a foot, somewhere in there, these units will be restricted if they're 2-bedroom units or whatever, down to about 75% of going market rate costs. It varies around the city a little bit, and it's why I'm being a little vague. The 80% AMI will be actually dictated by Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County and not the developers. And that's kind of the cool factor, is it's a public-private partnership approach to something. and we'll have the government side of housing authority demonstrate what that 80% AMI is. And so for all of Sugar House, for argument's sake, these 53 units will be about 75 cents a foot or 60 cents a foot cheaper than the market rate, which is a dramatic redux. It's $500 or $600 on a unit that's 900 or 1,000 feet. It's a lot.
Thank you. If you could answer-
I'll
Yeah, if
just
you wanna
go
answer
on
a
here a
couple
little
of those.
bit. Habits of those who fall into affordable housing brackets are less likely to need as much parking, and more likely to use, well, not necessarily. The interesting thing about affordable in our community is everybody assumes that people that are looking for affordable units are, recently released from prison or have some issues or something, and it's actually not the case at all. The affordable demand could be, recent graduates from college that have cool degrees that don't pay a lot of money, or a single parent household, a nurse or a teacher. In fact, we were doing a little housing study with Salt Lake County on another project and another asset. And the county demonstrated that 80 or 90% of their employees, in certain instances that are county employees from ambulance, police, fire, and a few others, they needed rent assist or some kind of more affordable components for their own housing. So Sugar House is a sought after area to live in. If we can provide some affordable product in there, I think we all benefit. Last art space by the U Clinic. The interesting thing about this art space, it's a little different than the U Clinic work. This art space is actually, we're working on a public-private partnership with Danny Walls and the Salt Lake City RDA. And the idea is that the city's RDA division and department and some of the art council and the like has access to this space to delineate it through the community. And it isn't a developer run space. It's developer donated space to the Salt Lake City Corp RDA. So as we continue to explore and expand on this premise, I'll be quick to share that intel with everybody in the community because it's never been done before. We're pretty excited to try it. Why will rich peeps want to pay more than their neighbors? With all due respect, lost and sort of touch. Please stop talking. Please stop with the litmus test. I'm just reading it so you all see it. And that's your opinion there, Colin. I understand. The idea is if you mix income in a residential facility, it benefits everybody involved in the facility. There's tremendous paper and documentation that demonstrates it. I don't need to try and be the litmus test for that. What else would you do? Rezoning? We won't do anything. If we're denied the rezone, we'll build 4 stories of residential that we're allowed per use and per zone, and we'll proceed that way, and it won't have an affordable component. Mixed use housing.
I think you answered most of them, Mark.
Well, I'm just looking to see that if I'm missing something that's a little different. Parking tickets, Brixton. Listen, we are sensitive to the fact and recognize that the community around Brixton has had a parking problem. We are very well versed in it. We've been working with the planning staff on parking matters on various projects we're building around town. We're not going to underpark this. It's an owner and a developer decision to underpark a facility because it's expensive to provide parking. What we do know is underparked facilities can't keep their damn tenants. Nobody will live there past their lease term if they can't ever park when they go home. If you overpark your facility, you stay leased up. If you stay leased up, it's a stable investment for the owners. And a lot of recent developers have underparked projects, and it's where their residents are transient. They're constantly moving. We're not going to do that. Traffic light installed on 8th and 21st. I don't believe so. We've got that hawk light there. We will be working with transportation. I've been working with Lynn Jacobs in transportation and on our transportation plan, but I don't think this project will warrant a light. Walkability. Let's talk just real briefly about walkability. we were really concerned about the size and the length of the block, and how for many, many years, nobody could walk through the middle of the block. If you live south of the block, you couldn't go to any of the cool little pho or bars, or, you know, the adjacent businesses through the block. We have 2 pass-through crosswalks, very well lit, very well secured cross block opportunities through the block in 2 different locations for people in the community. Smith's parking lot on a regular basis, worried about a lot of overflow. We're worried about that area as well. I frequent Estes and the Wing Spot and stuff myself. And our parking will be secured parking for our residents. And then we will have that shared 80 parking field that's going to be public accessible on the west side of the project to service the liquor store. But obviously in off hours prior to them opening at 11 and closing at 10 and Sundays and the like, we're going to have a full shared parking model on that. We don't think we'll have any parking that will cross-contaminate into the adjacent businesses. I think that's about it, Landon.
Yeah, thank you.
They'll keep coming.
Yeah, they'll keep coming. If you want to chat with them, feel free, but thank you. Thanks for coming.
Any other questions of me?
No, you're good. We'll have Judy do a quick land use report, and then we'll move on to Councilwoman Amy Fowler.
Awesome. I'll stay to hear Amy and
Thank you.
Judy. I'm going to just silence myself.
So the city council's been, I call it cleaning house. They're finally approving and finishing up some ordinances they've been working on for years. So one of those is the cemetery master plan that was recently approved, and the demolition ordinance. And there's one called notification that allows our group and other organizations or businesses to be notified by the city so they can comment on projects when people like Mark bring them to us. Oh, Ava, excuse me, Ava. The parking ordinance is coming up. And I have to say, I'm not in favor of that, because for all the various housing ordinances that we're going to see, like the affordable housing overlay, and they're going to revise ADUs, all that parking for those places will be on the street. And I think you all know that on the street doesn't exist in 90% of the Sugar House business districts. So I worry about that. Shared housing is about to be approved. That's what we used to call SRO, single room occupancy. So that's basically bedrooms with either a kitchen or a bathroom. And if you have the kitchen, then you go to the bathroom down the hall. But this has been changed to include families. So there can be places that have 2 or 3 bedrooms and then the bathroom or the kitchen. So these are small micro units, 500 square feet. And for people that, you know, are maybe just getting out of homelessness and transitioning to a job and things like that, that's pretty exciting. So at the next land use meeting on Monday, we're going to have Architectural Nexus. You may know where they are. They're on 2100 East, 2100 South, or I guess it might be Parley's Way by then. It's 2505, 2100 South. It's an architecture studio, and they're building tiny homes in their parking lot. And they went to get a parking pad for the construction piece. And the city said, wait a minute, that use isn't allowed in the CB zone. So they're coming to us for a text amendment to change that. And it'll be tricky to see how they're going to word it, because I don't know that they want to have tiny homes being built on every CB lot in town. So we'll have to see how that's going to work. And then Mark Isaac is going to come back again. He's going to work, his next project is the former 24-hour fitness project. So the parking lot right by the freeway and the old bowling alley, 24-hour fitness, they're going to develop that, and you know what it's going to be. It's going to be housing. So they're going to talk about that and their plans. We haven't seen anything yet. There's nothing on the website. So there you go. Questions?
Hey,
I don't have a question, but Judy, make sure everyone knows your meeting is this coming Monday,
Yes,
not
it's
not
this
the-
coming Monday, the 11th.
because of the holiday.
Right. I normally invite, I have about 75 people on the land use email list, and I also invite all trustees. So all those people will get the link to the meeting. If there's somebody here who wants to come that's not in one of those groups, send me an email.
Thanks, Judy.
Hey, Judy, how will properties be put on that demolition list?
That's not an easy fix. But for example, if a building burned down and it's not salvageable, the old demolition ordinance required that you had to have a rebuild permit before you could tear the old building down. So we've had a lot of places in town that sit for years as a big eyesore. So now they've changed it so you don't have to have that rebuild figured out. You can just take down the unsafe building. So it's streamlined it in that sense.
Is that for like some of the meth houses in our neighborhood?
Could be, if they're not salvageable, sure. There's
you.
one a half a block from me that was totally rebuilt, and I'm just amazed. So you never know.
If I could comment, I don't know if Bob remembers, but this kind of came about because of the old car wash on 21st South on the north side of the street that was in horrible condition for years and years and years. And they wouldn't let the owner tear it down because he refused to put together a plan for what he was going to put on the property. Finally, I believe it was deemed unsafe. And then they were able to put a chain link fence around it and tear it down. But it was an eyesore for what, Judy, 3, 4, 5 years?
Something like that, yeah.
All right, let's move on to Amy. Would you like us to have Tim Cosgrove go first, or do you want to go first?
Tim can go first.
I don't think he had too much to report, but go ahead. So Tim's the Salt Lake City Mayor's liaison. Go ahead, Tim.
Thanks, Landon. Thank you, Amy. You know, with everything that's been going on today, I just would be remiss if I didn't recognize Officer Detective Bishop's service. You know, people, we have a lot of, I mean, we talk about crime, we talk about meth houses, things that are the drug sales that are going on in our community. But just to highlight for just a moment, Detective Bishop's service. I don't know if he's still on, but I don't think people have a full, clear understanding of all that's entailed in his work behind the scenes. We have relied on him as an expert in our community for so many things. I mean, for crime prevention through environmental design. Our CIU officers are really a hybrid of our police department. We ask them to interface with our community. We ask them to cite the ordinances and laws that are being enforced. They have to be responsive to the mayor's office, to council member Amy Fowler, to our city council members. I mean, it's just amazing, all the things above and beyond the call of duty. But I feel really close to Detective Bishop and all the work that he helped me do and accomplish with our CAT team, our community action team. It's a multi-jurisdictional force, not just multi-jurisdictional, but across different divisions. He's had to work with civil enforcement to get some of the things that we, like the nuisance abatement and nuisance properties in our community. So I just want to thank him for his service and everything that he's done above and beyond the scene goes well beyond just a paycheck. He has done it because he cares and has the compassion, and he wants to make a difference for our health and safety in Salt Lake. So I have to say that. Thank you, Detective Bishop. Just a couple things really quick to let you all know in Sugar House. As of Monday, We were able to acquire the Salt Lake temporary winter housing overflow, which really helps a lot for us in addressing our unsheltered population. We now have more housing than we've ever had in the city, both in permanent resources and in temporary resources. In permanent resources, we have 1,422 bed spaces. In temporary resources, we've added an additional 435. So this goes a long way. It's been a hard road to get there. This year, especially with COVID, you may have remembered just a year ago today, when the mayor was inaugurated January 6th, she came out and with the community support helped put in the temporary overflow shelter there in Sugar House that we could address the unmet need. Because of COVID, we weren't allowed and had promised not to use that same temporary overflow shelter, but because of COVID and the requirement from CDC to have non-congregate housing, we've been able to add an additional 120 units at the Salt Lake temporary winter housing and an additional 75 units at Mill Creek temporary housing. And then we still have the motel, hotel voucher program and the St. Vincent's de Paul overflow shelter. If anybody is in need of shelter, you can refer them to 801-990-9999. Again, that number is 801-990-9999. The intent is to, and we've already dispatched outreach workers now that we've secured this additional overflow housing to help get people out from being outside and into warm rooms. And there is transportation available. The free shuttle service is provided from the homeless resource centers to the temporary overflow shelters if that's the need. So I wanted to give that update. Any other questions for me right now?
Hey, Tim, do you mind putting your contact info in the chat for us? For
Yes,
people
I
that
will.
have questions going forward.
Very happy to. Thank you.
So next we'll go to Councilwoman Amy Fowler. She was just elected chair of the city council.
Hi. Who would think that somebody that wears a onesie to a community council meeting would be elected chair of our city council? So you guys know the drill. I'm happy to answer questions. We are at the beginning of a new year, which I hope brings good changes from what we experienced in the last year. I'm really trying not to jinx anything. We have a lot coming up. Our council meeting on the 12th is only a work session. There's no formal session. And we anticipate that we will go until about 8 o'clock. There's a lot of stuff on the agenda, including what our past legislative intents were, including budget amendment number 6, which will talk about the police department, a lot of other things on the agenda. We have an RDA agenda that day as well. And then we have a lot of stuff coming up in the legislative session. So, I mean, we're in January, so we have to start thinking about what's happening in the legislative session. There is a bill regarding ADUs coming up. There are 66 0 regarding some sort of police reform action stuff that I have heard are going to be on the table, most of which will in some way involve Salt Lake City, whether negatively or positively, I'm not sure. I generally have PTSD when it comes to the legislature. So, you know, just trying to prep for the next 4 months or so.
Hey, Amy, there was a question about the demolition. Did you see that in the chat by chance?
Okay, there's so many.
Is there a process we could nominate properties for demolition?
So the demolition ordinance doesn't necessarily allow for that. I mean, I guess you could, the ordinance is in place. We have approved the new demolition ordinance, and the ordinance says what properties can or cannot be demolished and what process they need to go through. So that being said, I think that you could call the compliance, which to be fair, compliance is probably very well understaffed, but you could call them and say, you know, we think that this property needs to be demolished. I mean, I don't think I can do anything about it. The ordinance is in place to make demolishing properties that need to be demolished easier than they have been in the past.
But by the owner of the property.
Yes, by the owner of the property, but there, if I'm not mistaken, there are ways that neighbors can also call in or say that there's a property that should be demolished. If it's abandoned.
This is George Chapman. Can I make a comment?
Of course, George.
Yesterday, you were told that the old Tim Cosgrove and County Health and other groups are going to be meeting regularly to identify those properties. And so I'd recommend anybody who has a complaint, email Tim Cosgrove and ask him to investigate it. Ballpark very successfully used it previously.
Thank you, George. And that's also correct in that one of the things that we have been pushing as a council with this demolition ordinance is, are there, and congruent with our neighborhood and housing development department, is, are there properties that we could actually, that the city could actually buy and redevelop so that we can have affordable housing? So there's a lot of aspects within that demolition ordinance. And with what we have tried to ask our staff, city administration staff to do, and thank you, George, because I know that Tim is involved in this, is are there properties that we could turn into SROs in a productive way so that we can start to look at how are we adding as a city, adding to the diversity of the housing market that we need to add to so that we can address our communities experiencing homelessness. So we're looking at inventories of all of these different city-owned places and places that could be demolished that maybe the city could buy. I'm not promising anything, ideas that are out there.
I think you've touched on a good point there that if it's city-owned property, that's one thing, but so much of this property that people are talking about, there is a landowner and you have to have a willing seller before you can take hold of that property and tear it down, unless someone can deem that it's unsafe or that there's a hazard to the public. Otherwise, it's private property.
Correct.
I'm not saying I agree with that, but I'm just saying that's the facts. That's the fact, Jack.
Hey, Amy, there's another question about how does the mayor and city council plan to engage the state legislature and new governor to share the cost of the homeless shelters?
So yesterday at the city council, at our work session, we had a briefing by Natalie Gochner and the Ken Gardner Institute policy, whatever it's called, regarding the governance and funding of homelessness, basically is what it was called. And they have come up with a plan, and I encourage everybody to look at the, and I really should invite staff here that know how to do, like technology things and put things in chats and stuff. But there's a link to the report that the Kim Gardner Policy Institute came out with regarding the governance of how we deal with our homelessness situation. And I think that it is a good foundation and a good structure for how the city, county, and state can start to address communities that are experiencing homelessness. I think that we can all agree that one of the biggest problems with addressing, well, I have lots of issues about addressing our communities, and I think we've done it wrong for a long time, but I think this is a really good step in where does that funding come from? And how do we engage all of our partners? This is not a Salt Lake City problem. Yet Salt Lake City we have borne the burden of this issue since probably forever, because we are a capital city, because people come here for resources, because we have the resources, because we have elected bodies who want to make sure that we're taking care of our people as much as we possibly can. So Salt Lake City has all of this burden that we cannot fund anymore by ourselves. And if you read this report, I think what this report says, and yesterday in the work session, I said to Natalie, when Natalie Gochner speaks, people listen. And she and her team have created a foundation by which I think that the state can be involved in saying there is this entire complex issue of dealing with people and not dealing with, I don't like that, of addressing, of us taking responsibility for people experiencing homelessness. And I think that we're on a really good path, and I want everyone to look at that. And I think that we have to remember it's not just Salt Lake City, yet at the same time, I'm grateful that Salt Lake City and the residents of Salt Lake City reach out and do the things that they need to do to take care of our communities that are experiencing homelessness. Somebody brought up earlier that we had our temporary overflow shelter here in Sugar House, just up the street from my house, last year. And the only homeless resource center, I think, really in the state, and probably I would say in several states, that has ever had a welcome to the neighborhood party. Because we really care about our communities, and we also recognize that it shouldn't just be our burden. And I think the state is finally starting to recognize that as well.
Amy, there's another question in the chat from, can you see that?
You make me do all these things.
I'll read it for you. Hello, Amy. Good evening. Has the former PSB ever been considered before utilizing private property? All public safety officers deem this property unsafe.
Oh yeah, the former PSB is in some. It's owned by the city, I think, and there were plans for it. And yes, I don't have a good answer for you right now. I know I always wonder what the hell's going on with that piece of property. So I'm happy to figure out a better answer than I'm giving you now. In fact, Judy probably has a better answer than I'm giving you now.
Yeah, I think the ultimate plan is the whole thing will be affordable housing. But they've had several different plans and designs for that.
It's gone through different ownership and problems with financing, and there's been some issues with that building for sure.
Right. But I think that's the ultimate goal, which would be perfect.
Agreed.
And they would just tear down the old building and start over, right?
Well, no reason why they couldn't retrofit it if it's stable.
It's pretty bad.
Well, we don't know what the inside, I mean, I don't know what the inside, I heard the bones.
Is this the building that the police were in before they got their new public safety building? Oh yeah, the news report showed sewer running down the walls into the evidence room. That building is a mess. It needed to be torn down years ago. So just saying.
Okay.
It used to be my husband's office building. So I know some about it.
Okay, I'm gonna answer one real other quick question that Dana just posted in the chat. So unfortunately, those apartments for our refugee families are being torn down. I spoke with several city council members with Salt Lake City, South Salt Lake, because it is in South Salt Lake, not in Salt Lake City. And that's all I have.
Any other questions for Amy?
I think they're being.
I've got a question for Amy.
Bob.
I may be wrong, Dana.
So Amy had mentioned, and I've heard it directly from staff about the staffing problems in the civil enforcement or compliance division. Is there any way we could maybe route those concerns up? I've talked to those folks, as I've voiced concerns with, safety hazards, junk cars parked in yards, that kind of stuff in our neighborhood that go on for years. And they say that they don't really have any staff to deal with that sort of stuff. And to me, that it creates safety problems and eyesores and property issues and et cetera. So is there something we could do?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, hopefully. I mean, I think that in all honesty, every single department in Salt Lake City is understaffed. And I think that we have to do a real hard look at what we're paying for and what we're not paying for, what we're budgeting for. I think it's important to understand how the budget works, which I'm now headed into my 4th budget season, which is so crazy that this has been 4 years. But I finally almost kind of get it. And that is that the mayor presents a budget, a recommended budget to the council. The council certainly is the last person, the last body that agrees on the budget. And certainly we have the ability to change things, but we have, 6 weeks to look at an entire $3 billion budget and determine where everything should go. And so I'll be honest that I think we try to trust the mayor, and we do trust the mayor and the recommendations as much as possible, and can only look at certain things at a time. That being said, I think that it's a horrible system. And I wish there could be more collaboration in between getting to that recommended budget and then having the deadline, but we have a state statute deadline on both ends. And so as a council, we are literally bookended by state law that we get it at this point, we have to determine it at this point. And that doesn't give us a lot of time to delve through everything. So yes, during the rest of the year, we're trying to get to all of these things. And I think that this, I mean, that's all I have.
You know, those folks have told me it could be several years before they could drive out to even look at a complaint, which is pretty wild in a city this size with these resources. So thank you.
All right, guys, there's something else that Tim Cosgrove posted in the chat. Thank you, Councilwoman. I guess we'll meeting adjourned. You guys can go watch the news. And thank you again for attending. It means a lot. We know that this is an engaged community. So thank you, and meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Landon. Thanks for letting me be in my onesie.
Thank you, Landon. Good
Thanks,
meeting.
everyone. This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care,
Landon.
everybody.